In January 2025, a mid-air collision near Washington, D.C. killed 67 people. The investigation is still ongoing, but one thing already looms over the tragedy: a severe shortage of air traffic controllers that has left America's skies increasingly vulnerable. Over 40% of FAA facilities are below target. The controller workforce has shrunk 6% since 2015, even as flights jumped 10%. The result? Burnout, capacity cuts, and questions about safety. In this video, we'll uncover how decades of neglect, shock events, and a broken system created a crisis that puts every flight at risk. This is Empty Towers, America's vanishing air traffic controllers. Welcome to the control tower, folks. Right now, there's a quiet crisis unfolding in the skies above you. Over 40% of FAA facilities are understaffed. And we're not talking about a few empty chairs. More than 90% of U.S. airport towers report they're short on the people who keep you safe. The total number of controllers? In 2024, it was 14,264, but only 10,791 of them are fully certified. That's a gap of over 2,300 controllers. Think about that. Thousands of critical positions unfilled. While the workforce has shrunk by 6% since 2015, flights have actually increased by 10%. So we're asking fewer people to handle more traffic. Take Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, the busiest airport in the world. Its tower is 17% below full staff. And it's not alone. 19 of the largest facilities are at least 15% under the levels they need. As the industry group Airlines for America put it, the controller shortage threatens to continue shrinking the capacity of the national airspace system. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to a single day in 1981 that broke the system. That's next, the Wreckage of History. August 3rd, 1981. Nearly 11,500 air traffic controllers walk off the job, demanding better conditions. President Reagan doesn't negotiate. He fires them all and bans every single one from ever working as a federal controller again. Overnight, the FAA loses over 70% of its certified controllers. That structural hole has never fully healed. Decades later, the hits keep coming. In 2013, a government shutdown freezes all controller hiring and training. Then it happens again in 2018 and 2019. The pipeline goes ice cold. No new blood enters the system. Then COVID. Training stops dead for 4 months. And when it sputters back, it's at reduced capacity for nearly 2 years. The academy becomes a trickle, not a flood. Here's the brutal math. From 2013 to 2023, the FAA hired only 2/3 of the controllers its own staffing models said it needed. A shortfall compounding across a decade of shocks. And that's just the history. The real choke point now? The training bottleneck itself. All right, we know we need more controllers. But you can't snap your fingers and get one. It takes 2 to 6 years of intense training to become fully certified. Most people need the full 6. The FAA Academy in Oklahoma City can only train so many at once. In August 2025, they had a record 600 enrolled, but the output lags far behind. And the brutal math: in fiscal year 2024 alone, the FAA lost 1,400 controllers. That includes academy washouts, developmental failures, and retirements. So even record hiring years, 1,811 in 2024, 2,026 in 2025, barely replace the losses, let alone close the existing gap. As Representative Valerie Foushee put it, it has been made tragically clear that the FAA is facing a dire shortage of air traffic controllers, and it has been reported that more than 90% of U.S. airport towers are understaffed. This training bottleneck means we're filling a leaky bucket. But even if we could train everyone overnight, there's another problem. The controllers already in the towers are burning out. Understaffing isn't just a staffing problem, it's a health crisis. Controllers across the country are pulling mandatory 6-day weeks, drowning in overtime, and running on fumes. The fatigue is so deep it's literally eroding their performance and their health. And here's where it gets truly scary. A 2025 study in Crisis Journal found that many controllers hide their own health issues, both physical and mental, because they're terrified of losing their medical clearance. I'm quoting directly. Air traffic controllers often conceal their health problems and do not seek medical assistance. They show up sick, they ignore warning signs, they push through, because the alternative is being pulled from the schedule. And when enough of them finally burn out and quit, the pressure doesn't lift. It just shifts onto the shoulders of whoever's left, which pushes more people toward the exit. It's a spiral: fewer controllers, more overtime, more burnout, more attrition, fewer controllers. In 2024, the system lost 1,400 controllers through burnout, retirement, and training failures. And the cycle is only getting faster. The question isn't if the safety net will tear, it's when. And that's exactly where we're headed next: the safety crunch. We've traced the shortage, the history, the training bottleneck, and the burnout spiral. But all of that comes to a head in one terrifying question: what happens when there simply aren't enough controllers to keep the skies safe? In 2024, the FAA took an extraordinary step. It compelled airlines to cut 10% of flights in the New York metro area, not because of weather or runway construction, but because the controller shortage had made the airspace too brittle to handle the demand. Think about that. The capacity of the busiest air corridor in the world was deliberately shrunk, just to keep the margins from collapsing. Then, on a cold January night in 2025, an Army Black Hawk and an American Airlines regional jet collided over the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport. 67 people died. Investigators are still piecing together every factor, but they have pointedly not ruled out staffing as a contributing element. At a congressional hearing, Representative Fushi put it bluntly: more than 90% of U.S. airport towers are understaffed. And the system is, as NPR's Emily Hanoka reported, short more than 3,000 controllers. That is not a statistic. That is a gaping hole in the safety net. The capacity of the national airspace system is actively shrinking, and every day that gap persists, the risk of another incident inches higher. To their credit, the FAA has finally started moving, streamlined hiring that shaved months off the process, back-to-back record academy classes, and a new openness to recruiting from unexpected places like the gaming community. These are real steps forward, but the deficit is enormous. The system lost decades of hiring, and you don't rebuild that in 1 or 2 good years. Every understaffed shift, every controller working a 6th mandatory overtime day, every trainee pushed through too fast, it's a gamble. And right now, we are betting with every flight that takes off. Our air traffic control system is a miracle, but it's running on empty. Controllers are burning out, retiring, and we're not replacing them fast enough. The cracks are appearing. Sooner or later, something's going to give. If you want more deep dives into the invisible systems that keep our world in the air, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.